Sometimes life is messy. Have you ever wished you could refocus your mind, home, relationships, and work life? Join us as we use research-based information to make practical changes and simplify life. This is Life Simplified.
Welcome to Life Simplified. This is a new month, so that means we have a brand new theme of things we're going to discuss. And for June, we're focusing on the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace, which is actually a book by Dr. Gary Chapman and Dr. Paul White. So all of the episodes for this month will focus in on this idea of languages of appreciation in the workplace. And they will all we're all going to be referencing this book. So we'll make sure that we have some information in our show notes, but I want you to know where we're coming from. And so to get us started, I want to kind of talk about what the different languages of appreciation are, what the principles of this idea is. I don't know if you've heard of the love languages, but that is a previous book by Dr. Gary Chapman, and he has several. I think that there's all kinds of different languages that he breaks down, but they all have similar principles, similar guidelines. And so for our purposes, we're talking about the workplace, but I think as you're listening and as we're discussing, this applies in all areas of our lives. And if it's something you're interested in, like I said, there are multiple different books with different focuses for the languages. So to get us going, principles of different languages of appreciation. So the first thing is there are different ways to communicate appreciation and encouragement to others. And I think we know that, but maybe it's not something we really think about. So I guess, like, if I were going to say to you ladies, like, how do you communicate appreciation? What immediately would come to mind?
I mean, I try to tell that person, if they've done something for me or they're going up and beyond, even I try to tell them thank you, and then sometimes, I may just come in with, a little appreciation gift, buying them a coffee or bringing them flowers, something. I really try to tell them, that they're appreciated.
Yeah.
The same. It's definitely a thank you, and just trying to make sure that when you tell somebody thank you, you're specifically thanking them. Mm-hmm. And I'm not really very good at that, but I do know that I should be, but especially just saying thank you.
Yeah, I think we immediately sort of go to, when we think of appreciation, we think of the words we use, verbally saying it, like Joni mentioned. We think about like maybe a thank you note or a thank you card. We think about small tokens of appreciation, small gifts, and all of those things will be covered this month because they're all ways that we communicate appreciation and encouragement to others. And we're going to kind of break those down as we go this month so you can see what those different languages are, because everything we've just mentioned is a different language and there's more that we didn't mention. So that way we can be more aware of the ways that we can communicate and we can receive communication on appreciation and encouragement. So the second principle is an individual will value a certain language more than another. And I think as we go through the month, you will kind of know as you're listening, like, oh yeah, that's definitely how I feel appreciated. And you'll probably be able to figure out which language of appreciation is yours. And if not, there are different quizzes you can take to find that out. You may be able to spot it real easy just by listening to the discussions that we have throughout the month. But we do know that there are quizzes, and some of us have taken quizzes to identify ours. And so if that's something you're interested in digging deeper in, those resources are there for you. So we will definitely value a certain language more than another, and typically that's because that's our language. So that is one of the principles. The third principle is the most effective communication of appreciation and encouragement occurs when the message is sent in the language most valued by the receiver. So, we are typically going to lean towards showing appreciation and encouragement in a way that would make us feel appreciated and encouraged. But if that's not what the other person, the person we're trying to show that to, if that's not their language, then it may not be received as effectively. So in order to really show someone and effectively communicate that you're appreciative of them and we want to encourage them, is to figure out what their language is and try to communicate that in the language that speaks to them most, which goes right into the fourth principle of languages of appreciation, which is messages of appreciation and encouragement in languages that aren't valued by the recipient will tend to miss the mark. So it may be that we try to show our appreciation to someone else, but if that's not their language, it may not hit for them at all. They may not feel appreciated. They may not feel encouraged. They may not even notice that that was our intention. And so that's why we thought this would be a really great topic for the month, because if we can identify our own, then we know what we lean towards, but then we can start sort of spotting what those people we're around and we work with and communicate with on a daily basis, what theirs are. And I think we'll get to it later, but if you don't know what your coworker's language of appreciation is, ask. And they may not know what you're saying because they may not have read this book. They may not have heard this podcast. You can encourage them to figure out what theirs is. But it's something you can dig deeper in it, and maybe even an exercise that you can bring to your office staff meeting or to some kind of team building activity where you can figure out each other's language. Hopefully you've got lots of questions and this has sparked interest because we're going to dig deeper. Now, the 5 languages include words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, tangible gifts, and physical touch. And with physical touch, I kind of want to pause here for a second because we're not really going to dig deeper into the language of physical touch because in the workplace it's not real common and it may not be real appropriate. And so it's not one that we use as much in this aspect of our life as we would personal. So some of the things that would be considered maybe physical touch in the workplace would be things like handshakes, high fives, fist bumps, but that's one of those things that are really going to be case by case and person by person, and it's best to err on the side of not getting in someone's personal space bubble. You know who at your office you can high five, you know who at your office you can fist bump, but we definitely want to be respectful of other people's boundaries. And so we will not dig into physical touch, and that probably will not be many of your coworkers' appreciation of choice for in the workplace. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that we're saying 5 languages. We're really going to focus on the 4 most common ones for the workplace. So that being said, we're going to dig in today to the language of appreciation that is quality time. So first I'm going to give you the definition of quality time, and before I dig into that more, we will have a little discussion. But quality time as a language of appreciation is the act of giving the person your focused attention. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. So ladies, when you hear that quality time language, do either of you know that this is your language of appreciation, or can you relate to it, or what are your thoughts on this one?
You know, I sat here and think as you was talking about that, as far as quality time in the workplace, I'm not really sure if that is one of my languages or not. Mm-hmm. You know, now quality time at home, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely. But I do enjoy working with the people that are in my office. So I guess, you know, quality time is important because I really do enjoy, and I enjoy far spending time with my other FCS agents. And, you know, so I guess quality time would probably be up there when I wouldn't think that it would be.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that it would be my number one, and I have not taken this particular quiz, not the language of appreciation quiz. I have done the love language quiz, and so I know that at home, quality time is one of the highest one. But just kind of thinking about what quality time in the workplace would be and giving someone your full attention, and I think about how I really enjoy getting together with my colleagues and going to lunch or just sharing stories and talking about our lives and the things that are going on. And while we don't always get to do that very often with our busy schedules, I really do enjoy that. So I would be interested to see if it might be higher ranked than I think, because I'm like, no, quality time is not how I feel appreciated. But in reality, I don't turn down lunch, so maybe it is.
Okay, so I have to go back and say that I enjoy my other colleagues, just not my FCS agents. So just to clarify that, I do enjoy far as getting together just like Ashley and going to lunch, because most of the time everything's revolved around food. So I'm just saying. So I will have to go back and say that I do enjoy a lot of things with my job.
I mean, is eating lunch, is that a love language or a language of appreciation?
I think both.
Yeah, I think it might cross over different languages, because
Yes.
I mean, that could be a tangible gift and quality time and a couple others. But I can relate to all of that both of you said, because I did get the opportunity to take this languages of appreciation quiz, and going into it, I did know that quality time is my love language. So with my spouse, quality time is very important to me, and I'm really aware of that, and I think probably he is too. But I didn't at all expect that to be the case for in the workplace. I thought it would be vastly different. Matter of fact, I think I was thinking that words of affirmation would probably be bigger for me there. And it was high, but it actually turned out after taking the quiz that quality time is still my language, even for appreciation in the workplace, which surprised me. Kind of like you all said, I wasn't really expecting it. But I think maybe quality time in the workplace is different than what we were thinking in our minds. And as we go through a little more detail of what that is, I think some of you listening, as well as us in the room discussing, will be like, oh, that makes a little bit more sense, that quality time could be one of my languages of appreciation. And for me, it's my number one language of appreciation. And so I thought, before I really give you all the details about it, that I would read a couple of the statements from the Languages of Appreciation quiz that I took, that I chose, that kind of lended towards quality time being my language of appreciation, just so we can get an idea. So one of them was, I appreciate it when someone gives me their undivided attention. And that's very true. Conversations, connections are important to me. I think maybe some of that, it goes back to the therapist in me, the mental health part of me. I like to have a good conversation. I like it to be focused. If someone's distracted, then I feel maybe less than. So that tracked for me. Another one was, when I'm having a difficult day, it means a lot to me if someone helps me with a project or assignment I'm working on. And I think, okay, I can relate to that. Like, some days you're just bogged down. You have just task after task, and it can be a little overwhelming. And when someone in your office or a coworker just steps up and was like, how can I help? What can I do? It really does kind of give you a boost. And so that made sense for me as well. The next one is, when others show a genuine interest and listen to me, it helps me to persevere through a difficult task. So again, that good communication, that being heard, that kind of, we've talked before, being seen and feeling like someone really sees you and what you need is important and valuable to me. And then the last one I'll share is, I feel valued when people take time to listen to my concerns. So if I'm taking the time to communicate something I'm concerned about, or an issue I see, or something I think we can improve on, and someone truly listens to that, then I feel encouraged and appreciated. And so in looking at that, I think it let me know that on the surface, what I saw as a language of appreciation being quality time, it's a little bit different. There's a little bit more to it. It's not just that let me hang out with someone, because there are times where I'm like, I feel that maybe I'm could be more introverted, and so for me I was like, it's not going to be quality time. I'm going to want to be to myself, but that is not true, and I'm actually in the middle. I can, I'm an ambivert or whatever that word is. Well, but quality time is more than just the spending time. It is, what does that time look like? And so some of the things are like, communication is huge for someone that quality time is their language of appreciation. And that makes sense because communication is huge for me. So I was like, okay, light bulb moment. That makes perfect sense. And so when you're thinking about communicating with someone whose language is quality time, things like having quality conversations. So making sure that you're making eye contact, making sure that you don't have a lot of distractions, making sure that you're listening to thoughts and feelings. You're paying attention to what's under the surface, maybe not just the words that are being said. And so communication is also really good if it's like one-to-one and face-to-face, where they know you're listening, they know you're paying attention and not interrupting, but fully listening to the message before responding. And so when I hear that piece, I'm like, yep, that's me. What do you ladies think after hearing that part?
Okay, so I'm going to go back after you've explained it a little bit more. It's definitely not what I thought it was.
Yeah.
For sure. And I agree with every bit of what you just said, as far as, having that time when that somebody's looking at you, the communication, just being focused with that person, or you're focused with them. Most definitely. I would probably have to say that mine would, if I took the test, which I have not either, I've taken other tests, that would be probably up there on mine as well. So, and I cherish, I guess it goes back to, I want to be treated the way that others want to be treated as well. And if you're not giving your time and your commitment to them then how can they do the same for you?
Yeah, it does make a whole lot more sense why yours would be quality time, and while mine might also be quality time. And especially not only with the no distractions, but because how many times is somebody telling us something and we're sending an email, and I'm guilty of this. So I'm trying to get something done and somebody's telling me something and I'm like, yeah, and I'm looking at it, or I'm not looking at them, but I'm like, I'm listening. But am I really listening? I might be hearing. Yes, quality time. And when you said that someone takes the time to listen to your concern, I was like, whoa, there you go. Quality time right there. Not what I would have thought, because I was really envisioning it like I would in my personal life, what quality time would look like in my personal life. And I even said, hey, let's go to lunch. That sounds like great quality time to me. But it's so much more than just being in the same room with somebody and chatting. It's really listening.
Yeah, there's lots of layers to this language that we don't see on the surface level. And I will say, like, as far as how to communicate with someone, we just talked about that. Those are good communication tips no matter who you're talking to. But if you know someone's language of appreciation and encouragement is quality time, it's going to be especially important to them. Like, they're going to notice, whereas someone else may not feel like they're being like, oh, why are you distracted? It may not be as obvious to them. So it's just something to keep in mind. Now, another thing, so that's how you want to communicate with someone who this is their language of appreciation. But then there are certain actions that you want to take for these individuals as well. And so things to keep in mind are like shared experiences. So someone who values quality time will want to have shared experiences. They like to have small group dialogue. So they like those meaningful conversations, even if they're not just one-to-one, like opportunities to spend time with a group of people and have just deeper discussions than you would maybe other places. And they also tend to like working together on a project. which really spoke volumes to me when I read that. I was like, some of my favorite days at the office are doing this podcast that we're recording right now. And it is a small group where we do get to spend quality time with each other, and we do get into deeper discussions both on the podcast and outside of the podcast. And so it would make sense that I would enjoy this so much, because working together on a project like this is something that is important to someone who likes quality time in the workplace. So other things are like, spending time together, team building, celebrations, encouragements, things like that are really valuable actions to this language of appreciation. There are some things you want to avoid as well. Like, you don't want to go long periods of time without checking in with this person. So this person likes you to touch base with them. And we'll talk about some ideas of how you can do that. But they just, if you kind of just let them go, they feel like maybe you're giving them freedom, but maybe you don't care as well. And so if you know someone in your workplace has this language, you may want to touch base with them from time to time. And that's one of the things that'll be listed in some ideas. So I'm going to go over these ideas, and then I want to get y'all's thoughts on some of these suggestions. So if you work with someone who likes quality time, this is their language of appreciation, some things you can do are just like what Ashley mentioned. Getting together for a meal is never a bad idea. And I think even if this isn't your primary language, a lot of us enjoy this activity. So it could be a lunch, it could be a breakfast, it could be a quick coffee, anytime that you can sit down. And if you think about it, it makes sense, because when you're having these meals together, you're setting aside opportunity to have those face-to-face conversations. And so that in of itself lends itself to quality time. The stop by and check in. And so remember, we want to avoid long periods of time without checking in with these individuals. And so stopping by this person's office and just being like, hey, I haven't chatted in a while. How are things going? How's that big project I know you're working on? How are things at home? Because they like to make connections both professionally and personally, because that shows you care about them holistically as a person. But you don't even have to just stop by. Maybe you don't work in the same office all the time. Maybe you're in a different area. Picking up the phone and calling them, or send a quick text message like, hey, I haven't talked to you in a little bit. How's it going? Do you need anything? Can I help with that project? Or whatever the case may be, just letting them know you're thinking of them. This is one that I like. Go for a walk. And I have had coworkers that, if we had a break, we would let's take some laps around the building, and you can have those meaningful conversations as you're walking. And there's also some privacy to that, some physical activity to that, some one-on-one to it. So that's one way you can do this as well. Maybe as an office, having an off-site retreat or a team building activity would speak to these individuals, because they like that kind of activity and project. Attending an event together, so maybe it's going to a professional development activity together. I know that's something as FCS agents we do routinely. We'll get together and learn a new skill or have a new activity. That can be good. And then maybe just having a regular weekly check-in meeting to catch up. And I know for my office, we typically have a staff meeting once a week. Sometimes it gets canceled if there's not a lot on the agenda. But even if the agenda is smaller than normal, I like to go around and say, hey, we don't have a lot to discuss. I'm thinking about canceling, but is there anything you want to discuss? Because for some people, they just like to know that scheduled time is there for them to touch base and to connect with the rest of the team. And so that can be something to think about. So thinking about some of these suggestions, what sticks out to you, ladies, as far as some ideas of reaching out or connecting with someone who has a language of appreciation that's quality time?
I really think it depends on that person too.
Yeah.
I'll just use my staff support for an example. They love coffee. So I check in with them. We've got a coffee truck that comes into our county once a week, and some weeks I'll, buy their coffee for them, check in, with them through that, or just giving them that, that time to say, for me to give them that time and show them that I appreciate them, number one. But it just really depends, because either, I may do something for somebody or just stop in somebody's office, one of the agents that is in my office, say, hey, how's everything going? Hadn't seen you in a while, just checking in, with you. Or I may randomly just send a text I'll just use you guys as an example of something I've seen funny, just if we haven't seen each other in a while. It really depends on who you're wanting to have that communication with and what the situation is.
I agree with that. It depends on the person as well as your time frame too. I know that I can sometimes get so busy that I don't make time for it. And I can tell when I do that. And then I'm like, oh, I haven't been as able to check in, because I will stop by and just say, hey, what's going on? Haven't seen you in a while, and just chat for a minute. And I love that our jobs lend itself to that, because we can work on projects together. And our office has been known to go on some team building activities together. FCS agents, we go on team building activities. We do a professional development every so often. And I really enjoy those times, because we're not just, we're learning something, we're getting something from it, but we're also able to just connect a little bit more. So I think the stopping by and checking in, I would really like to be better at that and just be more intentional about, I haven't talked to this person in a while. Let me do that. And then I really enjoy the team building activities.
Yeah, and I think you make very good points. Like, it's going to matter who the person is. It's also going to matter the depth of the relationship and connection that you have with that coworker. Because there are some coworkers that we're very strongly connected to. And so going to lunch together or going to an activity together outside of work may be normal, but there may be others that maybe I'm not as close with them, but I can stop by their office and just check in and see how things are going. Do you need help with that project? And so depending on what your connection is, you may not do all of these ideas, or you may have a different level of it, because there may be some people that checking in with them is sufficient based on the relationship you have, and going out to a meal may not feel comfortable. But you have to really kind of know the people that you work with. And that's part of why we want to do this, because once you know what speaks to them, and then the level of connection you have with them, you can utilize these ideas to make those connections in a way that's appropriate for each person in your office. And I think it's always a good idea to learn more about ourselves and our communication styles and the way we feel appreciated and we feel encouraged, and as well as how can I do that for someone else so that I can meet their need instead of just trying to reach out in a way that I would want. Because we have the saying of do unto others as we would have them do unto us. And I think that's very valuable and important. But I think we can take it even a layer deeper and do unto others the way they would want to be treated. And once we can figure that out, then we can connect even deeper, and we can really, truly be effective with our communication of appreciation and encouragement. And so I know I've learned a lot more about the language of appreciation of quality time through this for myself and for others, and I think the ladies in here have as well. They're nodding their head at me.
Most definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I think it's exciting. It's fun. It's definitely something, this is right up my alley, something to dig into. And so I hope our listeners have enjoyed it. I hope that you will encourage your coworkers to listen to this and start taking a deeper dive into what their language might be. And join us the rest of the month as we dig deeper into each of the other languages, including words of affirmation, acts of service, and tangible gifts. This is Life Simplified.
Thanks for listening to Life Simplified. We are family and consumer sciences agents with the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service. Contact us at lifesimplifiedpodcast@gmail.com.